was good. Well, my name is Delroy Ricky Neath, and welcome again to UX UI Consideration. We're going to be introducing Matthew Lett. He's also going to be with me as well. He is a part of the DAD. Matthew and I are part of the DAD program. We teach the GRD online program. We're in the IKC 5 section of DAD on GRD online, sorry. And we focus on the UI, UX section of this degree. And so hopefully today we can open up your mind towards this type of profession and get you interested. If you have any questions, again, the mic is here, and we ask you to ask at the end of our presentation. Matthew Lett is coming out as well, and he's an instructor in the he teaches interactive editorial design with me, and I teach the interactive media usability course online as well. So, Matthew, you have anything to say? Yeah.
Well, I work alongside this awesome guy here, and we teach UX and interactive design principles, as he said, inside of the IKC block here at Full Sail in the degree. And we have some awesome things that we want to share with you guys today in terms of UX design in the context of web, wireframing, and mobile design experience. So we're looking forward to you guys learning some great things, and we look forward to any questions you guys have towards the end of our presentation.
Right. Well, they said we can't let them open up the laptops and so on. So I'm wondering if we could pass around a thumb drive for them to see the work, but also there's later on, I guess the link will be available for you guys to really follow along and see how these things are done. It'd be nice for us to really get you to follow. By show of hand, are you guys interested in UX UI? Yep. All right.
Her hand shot up
immediately. Yeah, man. That was awesome. That was awesome. I'm going to be as fluid as I can be here, so please, just work with me as we go along. We do have a slideshow that we'll present to you, but we also, in the midst of it, we'll be showing you some do's and don'ts as well, and how you should, approach your design. And a lot of young designers make a lot of mistakes and so on. And then even people who are in industry for a while, they will see things and think it's okay. But so we're just going to touch on a few things. It's only an hour, so we can't really show you too many things, but we're going to make sure that you get it as much as possible, okay? Matthew is an awesome instructor in the idea of the UX in terms of the mobile design. And so he's going to be helping me along with that aspect as well. My first section of the lecture will give you a generalized look at usability, explain some of the process, and then we get straight into showing you some work from there. All right? So let's get started. Matthew?
Yep.
All right? Okay. Again, our email address is here. And if you want to touch base with us afterwards, also, and I just started. So if this thing is working, we'll just start right away and just get it going. Okay. So when you think of usability, what we're looking at is how users tend to use a product, a service, interact with a brand, and mainly when they touch a product or interact with it, they're extremely satisfied based off of the fact that it was efficiently presented to them and it was effective enough, right? So that's usability, right? So that's one term. So what I'm going to do is just go through a process, show you the different process, then break down what type of jobs are there in terms of this first, and it's going to be a quick slide as I break through this, right? And so on. So some of the terms you may know. Some people know UX, UI, and the idea of UX, which is user experience, because we're interacting with the intended product itself. CX is another one. And have you ever heard that term before, CX? No, never. It's really customer's experience, because what the customer is doing is really interacting with the overall brand, a cultural experience with the overall brand. So you may be buying a ticket online. Let me not call any airline names, right? So you may buy a ticket online, and when you buy that ticket, you go into the airport, but what happens? It's not the experience online may be a great one because it was seamless. But the moment you reach the airport, you have to wait. The kiosk isn't working. Somebody's coming over and say you didn't do it right, so you may have to start over. They may charge your credit card and refund it, and stuff. It's personal experience. So you go through that process, and then afterwards you're still waiting, and then you go through the line again for them to pat you down, take off your belt, and undress you as you go through again, right? That's never a nice thing, right? Never a nice thing. So that customer's experience is not good. So what we have to do is understand how we take the user through a process. We call it a journey map. So we're going to explain that process too as well. The user interface is the interaction between the user and the platform itself, right? And so there are many jobs here for these individual process that I'm talking about. There are people who are, people just focus only on one aspect of this as well. But the idea of UX UI covers all of these things. And then another one here is called IXD. Really, IXD is really just the same thing as interaction design. That's really what it is. But the main focus of this individual is to really sit and come up with behavioral patterns that the user can interact with the screen. They create those patterns so the user is quickly understanding what to do within the environment, right? So different ones available for them. Now, you may think that UX design is only for, screens. But UX design is also for different platforms, different type of environment and environmental graphics, wayfinding. Ever heard the term wayfinding before? Well, wayfinding, yes, is signage, right? And you have interactive signage as well. You're going down I-4, you see a sign, big and bold with contrasting typeface with a green background. It enables you to see where you're going, get an idea of where you want to go and make a left or a right and so on, right? But you also have interactive wayfinding as well. But a signage like that is also is focused on usability, how the user sees the information and then gets instant gratification to get to where they're going. So that's another process too. Product design, it's another one, right? The function of the product, how it sits on the shelf. That's another way to look at usability. We also have augmented reality there, and I put a link for We Are Royal. They put out their Christmas calendar some time ago, and it was really a cool augmented reality type of experience. And it is getting a printed calendar and then interact using your phone so that the images on the screen come alive. That's really cool to me, and so on. And so we have to focus on how the user will interact with that and their response afterwards. And if there's a call to action, which is a CTA, we call it call to action, that is available for that as well. In print, billboards, the legibility, the text, the images, all of those things are necessary for this type of environment or profession. The UX design role or the UX designer, right, there's another name for him as him or her as well. They call us engineers. Yeah, we are all, yes. Because guess what we're doing? We're analyzing. And when we're analyzing, we're looking at the intended demographics, the users who are coming, right, to use the product, interacting with our software, interacting with the wearable, going to the store to buy something. You go to Publix, right? And one of the best thing I tell people about, and maybe that's free plug, but I'm not sure. But Publix is their customer service is really great. You enter, welcome to Publix, right? Shopping is a pleasure, right? And stuff. And they really make it pleasurable for us to shop, because if you ask them where you're going for a product, they quickly show you where that is, right? And they take you to that place, right? Then afterwards, when you pay for the product, and they're asking to take your card out. Customer experience, usability is in all of that. They label all their products, right? And the shelves. And you see the sign that help and enable you to find where you're going. Again, wayfinding, right? And so on. So all of these things are in this type of profession. And so they call us engineer because we analyze what the user is going to do. we go through a process of what we call information architecture. And that is organizing content in a clear and intuitive manner for the user. In other words, we, like designers, most of you guys are designers in here, right? Right? So what you're doing is manipulating content on the screen to convey a message, right? And because it's interactive, we're also looking at how the interactive screen will communicate to the user, right? So all of these things are necessary for this type of profession. And there's a link that we're going to provide and also give you the thumb drive so you can easily go to download these files to look at and get a clear understanding of the design process. And it's broken down here. I won't go through that lengthy process of explaining that to you to bore you today, because we want to dive into Matthew's presentation and me going through all the do's and don'ts and so on, you know. But it's a good way for you to get a clear-cut understanding, since a couple of you guys are in here interested in that type of field as well, you know, and so on. So the usability concept, as you can see here on the slide, it's really focusing on user-centered design. Right? And the goal here of usability is to improve the interaction between the user, the interface, the product, the service, the brand experience, right? Because remember, we talk about usability, we're looking at our user interface or user experience or customer experience, all of these. We have in-home, wearables, you know, products that you may not even, emerging technology, that's another term that is out there, because we can use a cup and put an interface on a cup. And that's a cup you just drink water out of, but now we can make the water cool, hot, anytime we want to, turn it to the thermostat, you know, and make that work, right? So that's emergent. So your job market is open up wide. It's not only in design studio, it's in an engineering firm, it's in a biotech firm. It's all over the place now, right? Because we are designing for interfaces for a car, interfaces for the watch, interfaces for products that you use in your home, even the chair you sit on, right? And so on. So those are things that you will see in the usability world as well. So 3 guideline principles here is that we focus early on the user. That is very important, right? Focus early on the user. And the other thing here is that we have to measure the product usage. In other words, that journey map that we create in the early stage, right? That is a process that we take the user through, right? We understand the process that they're going to go through, and then we have to understand how they use the product, and we have to think about those things as well, and how they interact with it also. The bottom line, don't make me think. It should be quick. It should be to the point. It should be intuitive enough for the users to understand, right, and so on. Some do's and don'ts that I put up here: provide a simple, similar experience for the users. That means if they go on a computer, a phone, wearable, whatever it is, it should feel similar. There should be no learning curve, right, for the user. Create instant gratification. You heard me mention that early on. That is a must. Can you imagine going to a door and it says, there's no sign on the door, but there's a protruding handle on the door. And you think it's supposed to be pulling, but instead it's pushing, but it didn't tell you, right? So they fail to create habits, because we look for habits, even though some habits you can break, right, as long as it's clear and obvious. Instant gratification isn't given, because when you go to pull, you put your arm out, right? Because that happened to me already somewhere. Okay, won't tell you where, but you know, and it's supposed to be a push, right? So it's supposed to have a label on it if that is the case, right? So those are things we have to think about on a computer screen. Clear navigation cues should be given. The user should know exactly what they're doing. It should be clear. Label it. Right? I think Matthew will dive in some more with some of those things too as well. Let the user control the browser experience. In other words, have you ever gone to a browser, a website, and when you go to the website, immediately as you start scrolling, I mean, I can understand they want you to sign up for a newsletter and they bring up a pop-up menu for you to sign up, or you close that. But when you're scrolling through the process, what happens? That comes up. A video plays, an ad plays, a pop-up window, you know, and so on. That's annoying. So we don't want that to happen. So some don'ts. Don't hinder the legibility, the readability in the site. Make sure that it's clear and obvious to the user. As you can see, even with, I'm going to show you some don'ts through the use of some of these projects as well. And we don't want that to happen. And we don't also want to create feature cram. I'm picking out some of them out of there. Feature cram. Have you ever heard that term before, feature cram? No? None of you? Okay, that is plugging in a lot of interactive features that confuses the user because it looks fancy, and it makes you look like you're really doing something cool, right? I know of a car that my neighbor had, and it was full of gadget in there. She's 80-something years old, and she every morning, Ricky, the call comes, help me with reprogramming this, because she always touch a button that throws it off. And so when you look at the car dashboard, it has so many things on it that confuses even me, And I think it was a feature cramp. That was just too much. Well, she bought the wrong car. It's a sports car for an 80-something-year-old woman, and I think that would just drive her nuts going down the road. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but anyway, I was going to say her teeth will be falling, But anyway, just I'm old too, so you may not know, but I'm older than I look. But but at the same time, we want to think about those things, right? We want to think about how we don't cram the UI, right? So that the user have clear instant gratification when they use the product as well. So 5 things I want you to walk away with from this first part of the lecture here is that orientation is important. Let the user know where they are at all times, right? Give them permission, permission for them, so that if they feel like they don't want something, let them close it. Don't give them things that they don't want, right? And then interactivity. That is what we call an affordance. Like I mentioned before, the door has a handle on it. It affords us to open the door, right? Same thing on the website. Affordances on a website would be link, button. In an app, the same thing. In a wearable, the same thing. We have links, buttons, and so on, so that the user is able to click those things and know what they are. Now, when I show you my examples and so on, I'll go through the sizing and what is necessary for all of those things as well, and so on. Relevancy in the world of design becomes hierarchy, right? What is relevant to the user? The user sees the clear, at least 3 things on the screen that is relevant to them. And so the user is going to go towards those things to really interact with them quickly. And of course, speed. Everything should be quick. Load really quick. 1, 2, 3, it's up and running. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you lose the person. You know what I mean? And so on. So because of this fast world that we're in, we need instant gratification at all times, okay? Another thing that I'm going to touch on is that with everything that we do, is always a framework that we follow, right? Now, we can go beyond that framework and break the mold of traditional use and go beyond that as creative people. But if you don't follow the traditional principle of the grid and also the traditional principle of design, then you're losing the person, right? So you don't capture them. So there's some principles here that you may have on a website. You have the header, featured area, body content area, side bars, and the footer within a website, and background areas, and so on. Those are key things that a lot of, couple of the designs you look at, they may have them seemingly, but they weren't structured properly, and I'll walk you through that as well, all right? And so things to keep in mind as we move on is that problem solve. We always want to solve a problem, right? And that's why they come to us. Our clients come to us to solve a problem, right? And so our goal as designers is to really find that solution, right? And that is, we study the information, we get it, we understand it, know what the intent is. When I mention the word intent, the intent is what the person is going to be doing, the user is going to be doing. Buying something, learning something, creating something, interacting with it, right? Be entertained somehow, right? So those things are important. And we have to consider the audience. I mentioned an older person that my neighbor, she is, and her eyesight may be a problem. So the typeface can't be small, right? So it must be large enough for her to see it. I'm just mentioning that as an information, as one common problem. Avoid confusion with icons. Icons can be misleading. And a lot of these apps and these platforms that we see, they have these problems because you may go on the Android and one icon means something versus when you're on the Apple, So we have to find those things that are easily recognizable for everybody, right? And so on. Be careful of multi-level menu. And that multi-level menus mean you go to a website, it has a menu item, you click it, there's a pop-up menu, but within that pop-up menu, there's another pop-up menu, and we call it a multi-level navigational system, right, as well. And so we want to avoid it in the smaller screens. In the big screen, we can understand it, have enough space. The smaller screen, that's annoying. And that's tedious, right? And cumbersome for the user. And then also to make functionality priority. That means if I'm on a screen that I have a slide in, I can slide with my finger. When I go to the bigger screen, right, those slide-in mechanism that you create for the bigger screen, for the small screen, need to be there where I could either drag it or I can click some cues on the screen to slide across and back and forth and so on. So those are things we need, instant gratification responses and all that stuff, give help. Another thing is necessary. Most of the time, if not all, we design with the fact that we're giving instant gratification for a user. You hear me use that word a lot. It is important for us to really remember that, right? And so if that is not there, then we should provide means for them to get help to understand what they're doing. In most cases, we have to do it first, right? And if they're lost, then we help them. And then, of course, we always need to conduct our test. Test and test and test and test until you can't test anymore, right? And then get it out there. When you test, you fix. And you send it back. You're always learning as you go along, all right? And so on, all right? I don't know if Matthew wanted to jump in here, or should I just go straight into?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Yeah, jump in, and then we can mix it up because we're just winging through it right now, as you know, and making sure that you guys can get the clear understanding. If you have questions, jot them down, come ask us, and so on, and then we're going to show you some, before and after there.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, all right.
So. In conjunction with what Ricky does in his class, my class kind of focuses on the same concepts that are taught in his class, but we address it specifically in the context of two things: smaller viewing screens, and we're using a tool known as Adobe XD, or Adobe Experience Design. And that's something that's been added to the Adobe suite in the past couple of years. And it's a tool that I'm really excited to showcase in my class. So what I'm going to be talking about are concepts, considerations, and choices. And a lot of those concepts you've already learned from Ricky, but I'm going to name drop them again for the sake of just showing you guys that this stuff is consistent throughout. So as Ricky mentioned, whether you're designing a kiosk experience, a mobile app, a website, these concepts, these critical factors, these usability patterns, they're never going to go away. They're always going to be utilized for your next experience. So as I shared already, what I do in my course, I teach the same UX concepts taught in IMU, which is the course that Ricky teaches, but for mobile screens within the context of Adobe Experience Design. And just to kind of recap on what Ricky said, we're living in an age right now where a lot of people are kind of breaking down those barriers of, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a motion graphics designer, I'm a print designer, I'm a this designer. And what you're gonna find as you guys are on your journey, I'm not sure where you are in your journey of learning about what's going on in the marketplace, what you're finding right now is that people are hiring designers. They're hiring designers that understand, and I'm gonna drop a word here called social engineering. They're hiring designers that understand how to design for people, for society, and to engineer solutions for the psychology of the user, in simple, plain English. So what I try to reiterate in my class is that we design for print, we design for web, we design for mobile, we design for interactive, okay? So specifically with Adobe XD, what I do in my course is that I share with students how to create interactive prototypes and share those ideas with others for feedback, for critique. You might be in a team situation. You might want to share something with your colleague, your classmate. And Adobe XD allows you to really create wireframes, interactive prototypes, and share that with others. So we talk about that in my class. And I'm going to be showing you guys some examples towards the end. So don't feel like I'm giving you some goodies and then leaving you, okay? There's going to be some stuff that I'm going to show. And just a little bit about Adobe XD. It offers designers, specifically creatives in the UX community, to design and prototype websites, mobile apps, and other types of interactive experiences. And I want to kind of touch on that a little bit because a lot of times when we think about UX design, it is common to say web, mobile, and interactive. But I want to branch off for a second with that word interactive. Interactive design is also a situation, as Ricky mentioned, with the older lady who's driving the sports car. Today, UX designers are designing the interfaces of cars. When you walk inside of the Tesla dealership, if you guys ever get a chance, I love cars, I'm a gearhead. So whenever you guys get a chance, go to the Tesla dealership and go inside those cars. And it's basically one big tablet when you walk inside the car. And a UX designer designed that. Someone with these skill sets that Ricky mentioned designed that. So interactive design is not just web, mobile, and when we think interactive, we think iPad, tablets, things like that, but it's kiosks, it's wearables, it's going up to get your money from the ATM. Someone has to design those usability experiences, okay? So 3 things about Adobe XD. You can share links of your prototypes and share that with others for feedback. It's one of the first all-in-one UX tools built inside of the Adobe suite. I mean, there were others. There's Sketch that existed. People were using that. It's another great UI tool for prototyping. But why I like Adobe XD, it was built inside of the Adobe suite. And it's kind of this all-in-one tool. And you can test your prototype on your mobile device, which is really great because you can almost use it as a simulator. And I'm going to be showing you an example of a student who did a really great job on a project, and she used her phone to test the interactive experience she built in Adobe XD. I'm going to show you a quick video of that. So in terms of my course, I try to encourage the students to communicate what needs to be communicated inside of their prototype so that they understand very clearly what does the user need, what tasks need to be accomplished, and what are the end goals and the end result of this experience. Okay? So for the most part, there are these general design principles that we're always going to consider. And we all know the contrast. We know our hierarchy. We know all of these balance, weight, line, all of these different types of design principles. But for the sake of just this lecture and this presentation, I've kind of shortened 3 simple principles that I really stress in my course, and it's going to make a successful user experience design, particularly when you're designing for smaller screens. So when we're designing a mobile app or we're designing something for a tablet-based experience, one of the most important things that we want to remember are call to actions, right? We want to create an account. We want to sign up. We want to buy now, okay? If you guys use like the Amazon app on your mobile phones, you're going to notice there are a lot of call to actions because they want to keep that user engaged, either to look at another product, buy this, save your credit card on file. There's a lot of to-dos. If you notice, if you ever just open up like an Amazon app or an eBay app or any type of app where you're using like an e-commerce process, you're going to see a lot of these call to actions, okay? And the call to action purpose is basically to provoke that immediate response from the user. Hey, I need you to do this. So they tend to be designed bolder, louder, and have much more visual attention in the way they're constructed. Content hierarchy, okay? When someone looks at this design, what are they looking at? What is important, okay? In the design world, that's called primary, secondary, and tertiary content. Third, 1, 2, 3. That's how I kind of remember it. So when you design something, what are people looking at? What should they be looking at first? What has most importance? What has least importance? And as usual, anything you design, you can't forget about our grids. We can't forget about alignment. We can't forget about making sure that things have structure so that people understand its relationship with each other, right? So whether you're designing shapes, graphics, photos, whatever the design element you're putting together, you always want to make sure that each design element has a good visual relationship with each other. That's why it's important to work with grids and stick with good alignment. So in my class, students are working on this project called the MIT Research App Pitch. And basically what they'll be doing in my class is that they'd be going to the MIT website, and they have this research lab part of their website where people are designing a lot of unique concepts for emerging technologies. For example, there's a technology that's coming out soon where there are adhesive designs that you would put on your skin. And those skins have very thin circuitry inside of them that you can use to do all types of tasks. So when the MIT students develop this type of research, they pitch it to investors, to all types of companies, and sometimes they get funding for it to really expand it, to grow it more. So it not only creates notoriety for the school, but it helps the students as well, and it gives the students as well as the school a sense of investment into the community at large. So I tell the students to go on the website, I give them a list of like X amount of research projects, and I want them to read what these projects are about, and I want them to develop an app experience that communicates the problem that these apps are trying to solve in society. So it is a 4-week process, and in week 1, there's tasks that they have to accomplish, week 3 and week 4 to develop this complete app design. Okay? So week 1, black and white wireframes, very simple, grayscale. I want them to express content structure, just very simple. Week 3, they're getting into using interactivity inside of Adobe XD, and I'm going to be showing you guys that of how you can connect the different artboards inside of Adobe XD and simulate an actual interactive experience, not just a PDF with like just static images of what an app is going to look like. And then in week 4, they're doing their final prototype, and they're adding some color. They're adding photos, they're adding illustrations. Oops. So in week 1, they're going to be focused on this, and there's X screens that they have to design. Black and white, simple content, and there are certain things that they have to integrate into their design. And of course, like I mentioned, week 3 and 4, they're going to be adding the color and the photos and the illustration to these things that they've put together in week 1. Real simple stuff. So now what I want to get into now is I actually want to show you an example of what they've been putting together and what the students are working on, okay? So let me pull up some examples here.
You want us to just escape?
Yeah, let's close out of that. Okay.
So while Matthew is making his presentation, he's going to go through his process, and then after he's finished, then I'm going to talk to you guys about the wireframe process and show you some do's and don'ts for that too, and talk about typeface and how that works for the screen as well. Okay, so he's going to go through that process for the smaller screen. Okay.
All right. So here's an example of what they're going to be working on in week 1. And there are 5 panels, right? Inside of Adobe XD, they're called artboards. There are 5 panels that they have to design with certain things that need to be inside of those things, okay? They have your call to actions, you have your login screen, you have input fields that all have to be designed, you have confirmation pages, and this tool is like working in Illustrator. It's not a very complicated tool. The learning curve is not very hard. It's something that many students can grasp very quickly. So very simple, designing shapes, using text, all of that stuff can be built in here. Designing lines for input fields, adding curves to edges so things don't have to necessarily be straight on angles. You can do that here, adjusting the radius of the edges of boxes. You can bring in icons that you may have designed in Illustrator and just drag them in here and work with different assets if you want to create something custom. It's very easy to just click on an artboard and just duplicate it. Really, really simple to do that. If you want to duplicate an artboard, and let's say there's design choices you need to make that are very similar to the last artboard, it's a very, very easy tool to work with. So this is week 1, and this is what they're working on, and I give them feedback on their ability to design typography, content structure, working with different values with grayscale, and I want to see their ability to take away the photos, take away the color, and just work with black and white. Okay, so this is their week 1. Where are we here?
You mind me say some stuff here?
Sure, go ahead, Ricky.
So what Matthew's showing there, as he said, is showing his work there for the student. And you see all those screens. What you have to do is to plot, like a plan, all the screens before you. It's just like a storyboard. right? If you think of a storyboard for your animation, for your movies, for all of those things, it's the same process. You have to tell the story as you go through that process, right? And so that process is necessary within that planning stage. And there are a couple of things you have to think about when you're going through that. How much content will fit on the screen? What size is the screen? And how would that content fit on the screen and where? Right? Those are things you're going to have to consider when thinking of doing this type of work. We have things called a content tracker, and that is listing out your content that will be on each screen, right, as you design, right? Because how can you design without knowing what is going to go where? You know what I mean? And you end up in trouble when that happens, right? And so.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have to shift a little bit because we have some file compatibility issues. So that won't take us off course though. I'm just going to show you a different example. So I want to show you guys an example of a student that worked on her goals up to week 3, where she included the black and white wireframes as well as the interactivity. So these are a lot of artboards, but as Ricky mentioned, each artboard expresses a particular task and a goal that the user needs to complete. So this student, she put a lot of effort into this, and she did things beyond the rubric that I didn't even ask for. And she really thought through some things that I didn't even expect her to complete. But it develops a really complete, holistic project that you look at it and you're like, wow, I could see this thing really working and really happening. So what I'm going to do for the sake of time and for demonstration purposes, I'm going to start on the first artboard, and there's a tool inside of Adobe XD that allows you to actually play and preview interactivity that has been built in something called prototype mode. And basically, honestly, all these wires you see are like patch bay cables. And we're connecting this artboard to this artboard, this button to this artboard, this piece of text to this artboard. And all it is that I need you to go here when you click this. When the user does this, I need them to see this. This is the on state for this. This is the off state for this. This is the screen that's going to show the UI component of the keyboard that comes up when someone clicks on an input field. This is what it's going to look like when that goes away. And that's all that's been designed here for the sake of time.
Awesome software.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's when you say awesome sauce, right? Did I use it wrong? No. All right. You know.
So I'm going to go ahead and hit play and do a desktop preview of what this looks like. And so I'm going to show you when you click on the user field, right? The student wanted to show, hey, if this was an app, this is what the user would see. This would come up. You'd be able to press the various buttons. Of course, this is the design end. The development end is a whole nother journey. That's when we actually make this thing work and based on the technology they're going to be using it in. But for the sake of what we do, we teach the design process and the user experience. So she designed it in such a way that when you click on the keyboard, it goes away. Password field, same thing. If you want to go ahead and let's say you forgot your password and you don't remember it, you can click on forgot. Same thing here, right? And the key, if you've noticed, she's been consistent in what she started in the beginning. And she's doing some what you call habituation. She's establishing habits very early on of what the user is going to experience. Now, if we break those habits, and let's say we clicked on that and it didn't come up, we'd frustrate the user because they're already going to start asking questions like, well, hey, the first artboard I clicked on this, and now I'm not seeing it here. Hey, what happened? So as designers, we need to be consistent to make sure that we're maintaining that habituation. All right, so if you want to click send password, and then you get a confirmation. All right, back to login. You can go in and register. I say you want to make a brand new account. You can do all of that here. You click on the keyboard to go away. When you click create, you get a confirmation. And then what's awesome is that once you create the account, you can go ahead and get started, and it takes you through the rest of the process. You can upload a profile picture, or what I like is that she allows the user to decide, not trap them into one task. And it allows you to kind of move forward and say, you know what, I'll skip this step. Maybe we can do this later. And now you get into the actual app itself, the landing page, and then there's these various icons. And what I love about her app design is that it's very iconography based. She uses icons that are bold or large in size that allows you very quickly to say, hey, that looks like a messages icon. this pencil may allow me to create something. So it's very intuitive. And she just added a lot of things that were not even necessarily part of the rubric, but I love the fact that she went ahead and just started adding things because she was thinking through that process. So this is some of the stuff that we do in our course, is design these interactive experiences. Show you guys one more. And I'm actually going to show you, okay, this one's not behaving. All right. Okay, I'm going to show you this one. And this is another example of a successful design. Now, there are some things that, color-wise maybe could be adjusted and tweaked. But what I like about this student, again, this is another example of a student that went above and beyond to really go and design some things that weren't necessarily asked for in the rubric. All right? Same habituation that we're establishing, bringing up the keyboard if someone clicks on a user field. If somebody needs to create an account, they can go ahead and do that. If they're finished doing that, there's a confirmation that lets them know that their account has been created. When you click on the home button, it brings you into the interior pages of the app, okay? So this is another example of a student that, again, went above and beyond and created things that, again, wasn't asked of them. But what happens is when you're a UX designer, you're working in the UX world, your brain begins to really sit and look at this process. And you ask yourself questions. Can I make this better? Is this text not good enough? Maybe the color doesn't work against that background. Maybe I need to look at the size of my text. These are questions you start to ask yourself as you build the ability to observe and to develop your eye for detail. And I want to show you guys something that she put together. I won't play the audio, but I wanted to show you guys something where there's a part of my course where I show the students how to connect Adobe XD with a mobile device. And you can actually use your phone or your device as a way of previewing your app. So it gives a real tactile experience to see, hey, is this design really working in the physical structure that I've designed it for? The actual device, the viewing port that I've designed it for. Does it work? So she actually went ahead and recorded this and did a little test for me. And as her spouse is clicking through every area, she's narrating in the background, explaining to me what she did, why she did it. And what I loved about this student is that she actually went ahead and expressed to me, these are some things that I noticed that I'm going to go back and fix. And she made note of it, that, hey, I realized this needs to be adjusted, So the world of UX design is a really fascinating world. And there's a lot of gateways, a lot of doors that you can walk through. But my course just focuses on one door that a student can walk through. Ricky's class focuses on all the usability patterns, all the UX ideas, the customer experience. There are many doors that you can walk through in his course as well. But our goal today is to really show you guys in a quick, short view what we do and why it's important right now in this marketplace that we live in, where there's so many pieces of technology, there's so many things coming out where designers have to really understand users and the psychology of those users and how to design for them. So I hope you guys have enjoyed what I've shown you. I think Ricky has some things he wants to share as well.
I have something quick to show, but it's in the interest of time. I'm not sure if we have enough time to do it or not. If anybody can tell me, but I'll try my best to get as fast as I can into it. And the idea is that thanks Matthew,
yeah, no problem.
When people design, we tend to see design that tend to look like this sometimes. And it's a start. And I'll be polite with that. It's a start. And so we'll see designs that even look like this one as well. Again, another start. Now, remember, early on, we spoke about the different principles and the orientations and all these different things that exist in usability. And we see here where we see a crowded screen with content. Where do you start to look at? You know? So we don't separate design principles from interactive design. We can't. Because interactive design started out of the idea of print, to be honest with you. When the newspaper, we look at the newspaper, we have a fold, right? The newspaper, when you open up, you get a full-length newspaper, but there's a fold there. There's also a featured area. There's also a headline. There are also the masthead and all of those things. Those things exist for a reason. And so we copy or borrowed those principles and brought them over to the world of web. And so when we design, we don't want to confuse the user with content that they can't recognize or even know where to start. Right? So that's why instant gratification is necessary. All those principles are the 5 critical factors I talk about: orientation, relevancy, understanding how people will interact with the screen, which is interactivity. All of those are necessary. We also have another design here. You know, when looked on, we're wondering what is going on, right? So this is same project 1, 2, 3 you're looking at here. Same project, Serene Spa, done in a different way. Another Serene Spa project done in a different. This one is actually different from Serene Spa. Where is it? This one. Yeah, this one is actually different. So now let's look at this design. I think this is a smaller view that I'm getting here, but anyway, we can look at it here. Now, when you look at this is a wireframing, right, of the same website that you're looking at. And if we look at the design comp of this, you will see that the design of this thing here, I guess the resolution is different here, so I never taken consideration of that, but let's go in here and look at the same design. And this is Illustrator I'm using now, right? So we can use Illustrator, we could use XD, Photoshop. A lot of people are sticking to the Illustrator and XD, but they still utilize Photoshop somewhat because SVG files, and you guys know what SVG is? Scalable Vector Graphics. Never heard the term, right? Those are things that we use because we can scale it when we program the sites, and we don't lose any resolution at all. You know, so that's another thing that we're seeing the browsers now accommodating, because we don't want to lose resolution when we go up, when we come down, you know, and so on. So those are things that you'll start to see a lot of. And so XD and Illustrator is used quite a bit for this type of work. So one of the things that I want to show you here is that when we start working on a project, whether it is a, that's not the folder, whether it is a website, what do you call it here, a phone system, a wearable, there's a process that we go through. And the process is this. 1, we have to start out with the content first, as we know. Is this the same folder, Matthew?
No.
No, it's not. Okay.
I think it's back here.
Okay. So we have to start out with the concept of the idea of the content first. Then we have to have a content tracker. And after the content tracker, we have to have a flowchart. And then also we have to go to the fact that we have a journey map. And actually, I do have the journey map here that I need to show you guys what that looks like. And you may hear me talk about it a lot. And this is something we've done quite a bit in the usability world. We create what we call a journey map to show the user process in accessing the user interface, going to the store, going online, connecting with other people. And so this helps us, this process that you're looking at, help us to tell the story. So the user started from a point where they saw the store, they even saw a signage for the store, they even connected on the web, on social media, and they passed the store, because we have to consider that too, because it's not just online only, which a lot of that is going to be soon. A lot of stores may be closing down to just focus only on online, you know, and so on. And but we still have to consider that, because the world of print is not going away for a long time. As much as people think that print is dead, it's going to still be around for a while, because you have your grandma, your grandpa, all of those people that are not really savvy they're still living.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, I'm 50 years old, I'm still living, so I've been around for a while, you know? So I use old school stuff even though I love the interactive world, you know what I mean? And I see people older than me, they're still going on the interactive world, but they still go to, you know, the other stuff. I personally love to read a book, you know? I don't like the idea of reading it online, even though I do it. You know, I love to pick up the book and I love to smell the paper because I'm a print guy. I love print from way back when, you know, and so on. But you have people that will always use print for a while, so it's going to be around for a while. But when we go through this process, we have to include all of those channels as well. So the journey map helps us to understand what the user is going to do. So we have to create things like this, right, for the user, and we have to show the satisfaction, what is not, why they're not satisfied, and so on. I wish I really have time to show you how to build a wireframe from start to scratch in Illustrator and so on, but we don't. But the thing is, it's just showing you what is good and what is not. So if we look at the bad design, and we look at the process in how we start. So the work files will show us this, and I'm trying to figure out where things are here. This is presentation files. There we go. All right, so we always start out with what we call our content tracker. It may look boring to you, but it's necessary. And the content tracker is really listing out what's going to be on the page. What are our global content? What's going to be on all the pages? What is our navigation? What's going to be inside the navigation, the header, the footer, and all those areas. Also, what's on the home page? You know, Matthew showed you this tablet, the small screen. You saw the storyboard. That's what we're doing. We're listing it out in a text form. And then now we go into the storyboarding of it and create that, and that's what we do. And so we leave that, and then we go into, of course, we have to sketch. I always believe in that. Old school. Still have to do it. Old school or not, right?
Yeah.
Still have to do it. Whiteboarding. Go in there, sketch out the concept. Those are things that we have to concentrate on doing. So we're not excluding design. We're not excluding the method of creating. We're not excluding the method of thinking and the design process of utilizing the sketch pad and so on, right? And from that, we move into the process of what we call a grid. And I think I opened this already. No, the grid. You guys heard about the grid? No? You guys are in the design degree? Some of you guys? No? Film, right? Right. Okay, right? But the grid is important. You still use the grid in film, right? Rules of thirds and all of those things, right? Okay? So those are important aspects of the grid. And so any design that we create utilizes the grid some way, shape, or form. So I'm here inside of Illustrator. Is this on? Can't see it.
It's off.
Yeah.
It's locked.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. See that? We're still utilizing the grid, you know? And in the interest of time, if we had time, I'll show you. This is the fold. Right here where you see this, size of the box, that's where the fold is in the screen. When you see a screen at a certain size, you know where it's going to sit, you know, and so on. So you have to understand what those things are when you start designing. So we design the wireframe, and then we go into what we call the design comp from there after the wireframe. Where is the design comp? Right here. No, that's the bad design. That's another bad one, you know. And so my method here in Illustrator is that we can always test what our design looks like in the world of web, or even in the phone, depending on what you're designing for. I really do like XD a lot, though, but we still utilize Illustrator to do some of our work. And we can see what our design look like in terms of the size of our fonts, you know, and so on. And the size of fonts is important. Don't go below 11 point, or even 12. 12 is really small still. We can't go below that, even if you're on a web or a phone or any of those. You know, you go below that, it's really hard. You know, and so on. So I'm not sure if we have time to go into question and answer. I really wish I could show you some tips and tricks in Illustrator, but we only have an hour and so on. I can easily, you can contact us and we can give you a lot of links so you can look at stuff, videos that we've created to show you how to build your wireframe from start to finish. But if you have some questions, we'll be happy to answer any. Matt, do you have anything to share?
No? I'm actually going to pull up our... where are you? This is PDF. I'm actually going to pull up our PDF here.
Okay.
So that way you guys have our email addresses,
Thank
and
you.
we'll just leave that up towards the end. So even when if you guys come up and you have questions, we'll still just leave that up for you guys.
All right.
Cool.
You guys have questions at all that you want to ask? You can raise your hand, get the mic, and we go from there. We have a question here.
Hi, I'm Hope, and I'm in the DAD program currently. Do they offer the same program on campus and online, or is it just online?
It's only online for now.
Sup, Panda? Well, if you're a campus student, how do you get included in this? Because this is what I want to go towards, the UX
Okay.
UI design.
What I would recommend is that you talk with Eric.
Okay.
And I'm not sure where you are in the program right now.
Month 8?
Okay.
9?
See, that administration part of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just finished Project Portfolio 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I think you should maybe connect with Eric and Eric Rosenfeld,
Okay.
and see if you could talk with him and see where you go from there. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Other question. As being a UX UI designer, how does someone get into that field? Like, how do they build a portfolio on top of that?
Okay.
How do they get into the field?
You want me to answer it too?
Yeah, I'll chime in when you're.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, luckily you asked that question because maybe other people here may want that too. I mentioned early on I came out to print. Back in the 90s when the world of web started to, boom and so on, we print designers got into that. Nowadays, you have a lot of access to many things out there right now, right? And so if you are in the DAD program, I'm not sure, of the process of why you went that route or not, but to get into the world of the web and UX UI world, there are books that are there for you to read, but there are always online places you can go, usertesting.com, uxpin.com, and you get to understand those processes as well, what people will do, right, in this world. If it is that you're going to change the degree to come into this world of the graphic design online, we do teach in our block this set, and then you have another block that teaches the coding as well. I would say if you want to get in that world, learn the principle of design, of course, that's important. Understand users, that's key. All of what I mentioned is just brief of what we do. But you also want to learn some coding too. I believe that even if you're not a master of it, just have a clear understanding of it. Like I mentioned early on, you're an engineer. That's what you're doing. You're engineering a process, right? And so they see you as that. When you go into the world of usability, they want you to understand all of these things that we mentioned early on. So the book, Designing Interfaces, Jennifer Tidwell, is a really good book to look at. It's a really great book, not just a good book, it's a great book.
Don't make me think.
Don't Make Me Think, the author again.
Oh man, it's in my week 1
Yeah,
slide.
Don't Make Me Think is another book. Above the Fold, I always tell designers this, that that book is for designers who have never entered the world of UX UI before, but it opens up the design side mind to grasp the concept of that usability world and also designing for a different type of platform or screen. Read a lot. W3 Schools, if you want to understand code, is a good starting place for that as well. I have kids who are 14 and 16, and they're into this already because this is the way we are going. and I do have a whip that I say learn code, and I'm kidding, I don't, but that's on here. Sorry, I don't actually, but I do tell them to learn code because it's always necessary, regardless of what you're doing, to have a clear understanding if you're getting in this field. But knowing the design principles and understanding these clear-cut principles and and stuff. If Matthew want to chime in,
Yeah.
you can too.
Honestly, I would tell you to develop your eye for observation. I come from an art background. That was my first journey into the creative world. I went to School of Visual Arts in New York, and I had an art teacher there that told me the most successful creatives that exist and can jump from field to field are the ones that the eye. You have to be able to look at something and say, this doesn't feel right. And even if I don't know the answer, I'm willing to find that answer based on the foundational knowledge that I know. Observational skills are key. And I know this next piece of advice might not seem popular to an atmosphere of creatives, but learn psychology of human beings. Learn typical trends of 6 to 12-year-olds. Then learn 15 to 20-year-olds, 35 to 45. Learn different types of people. And that's not from the perspective of learning bias about people, but learning about more so demographic. I think that's the safer word I would say, is learn about demographics. Why do we design this for these types of audiences? Why do we design this for these types of audiences? And I would say once you have the observational skills and you have the people skills down, because I'm sure you'll be a success on the design end. So once you have the design principles and the knowledge of the people and the observational skills, everything else at that point is just experience and getting your hands in there.
I love to watch people at the airport.
I car watch a lot.
Yeah.
So it's good to just watch stuff sometimes.
So I see people do weird things. And I sketch it too. I'm not kidding you. So it's part of the principle of understanding how to design for people too, and thing. I'm crazy that way. Yes, question over there.
I've got a question from the online folks. A few of them wanted to know if you could speak more about the don'ts or things to avoid in design.
There's a part in our slides that we mentioned before, and that has the do's and the don'ts that they could look at also. But a couple of those would be the 5 critical principles of design is to always give one is orientation. We call it mapping in the usability world. And mapping is plotting, let users know exactly where they are at all times. In a store, the same thing. You go in the store, you want to see things labeled so you can understand where the apples or oranges are. And if you put an apple in the oranges area, it's labeled oranges, then you have a problem, right? So mapping is important, giving people cues to really interact with the screen. You want to also give people relevancy, which I mentioned before too, and that is principle of design too, where we create visual hierarchy. And that is, don't clutter the screen, for one, right? We can't do that. And when we clutter the screen, we're creating confusion, and so the user isn't focused on the key purpose of why they come to the site or even utilize the store, because I'm not going to call names again, but you have even gone to some stores and they're not labeled, and I know and you would dig in too close, you don't know what is what, right? So and I hate shopping, so so we ought to label that, and so on. There are 2 types of users out there. You have the search dominant and the link dominant users. And the search dominant users are those people that will immediately see a search field and go to it and plug in what they're looking for. There's nothing wrong with that. So we provide those cues for them, right? They're the same people who go in the store and they see somebody at the what do you call it? The information booth, right? And they're going to ask questions before they go in and look. I'm the link dominant user. I look for the links. I look for the cues immediately. Because I look for instant gratification. If I don't see it, then I'll ask afterwards. But I want to look for that first. So we ought to provide those cues for people immediately. Those things are a must that we do. And so we want to do that. The other don't. There's another thing that we need to do is to. I mentioned feature cram early on. That is where a lot of developers go crazy, which is why we plot first. If you don't plan out your interaction, you throw features in that would crowd the screen, and then the user get confused as they start the design, right? And so we ought to know what is going to work for the smaller screen versus the large screen, which in most cases we want to have similar functionalities and features, but we want to know when to pull information, scale, resize, because responsive design, have you guys ever heard that term before? Responsive design is taking the design and rearrange it, or for it to fit a smaller screen, right, and so on. We also have adaptive design, but we won't get into all of that stuff and thing. I don't know if you have anything on that, but there's another question here too.
Yeah, I mean, to add to the do's and don'ts, I think just from my personal journey, you learn about the do's and don'ts by studying human behavior, and then some things are just common sense based on like how we interact with life. Like if we walk towards a door, we push it because it says push. We go to the bathroom that's associated to what we see in the icon, or you know, but I think a lot of things is based on just the psychology of how we use things, and things will either feel intuitive or they won't.
Did you have a question? No, okay. Okay, any more questions? No? Nope. No? Okay.
All right.
That's it. All right. Thank you for coming. And I hope we kind of scratched the surface there in 1 hour, telling you about UX, UI, and all aspect of this type of profession. It's really wonderful profession. It's really growing. And I would say that, like Matthew said, understand human being. What we do is a part of marketing. You know, is a fun part of marketing, I call it. You know, and in understanding how people think and act and behave and design for that is a wonderful feeling to see the end product, that they're using it and they're satisfied, that they will then go on and then pass it on to somebody and say, I've used this, you want to check it out? You know, and I know we do that. Bad news tend to travel faster, right? The app sucks. They said, don't use that, you know, quickly. And nowadays we start to see people sharing quite a bit if the thing really works. And that really, you know, goes a far way. Of course, social media play a lot to do with that nowadays too as well, which is a wonderful thing. We can hate it or love it any way we want. It's just how we use it, you know what I mean? And so on. So I would say be creative, learn from others, study people, think before you design. Critical thinking is important, right? Because if we think critically to solve a problem and we can get there, then we solve the world's crisis of hunger, right? I'm kidding. But you know, we'd love to do that one day. But you know, hopefully we can become great designers in the future that will solve problems. All right?
Yeah.
Any last word? No.
No.
That's
yeah,
it.
I think
That's
we
good.
covered
Thank you
everything.
for coming. All right. All right. Stage left, right.